Hey, 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 it's Rebecca, and you are listening to Resilient by Design. Whew, today, guys, I've got a great guest for you. I am interviewing Rebekah Higgs. She is known as the DIY mom, and she built a life and career on her own terms. Growing up with parents who flipped houses long before it was trendy, Rebekah developed an early passion for design. During her years at Acadia University, she earned the nickname the Trailer Park Martha Stewart for her creative and crafty ingenuity. She was a musician, designer, renovator, thought leader, TV show host, and entrepreneur. After moving to Toronto to pursue her music career, she spent her days waitressing and her nights performing with her band. But unexpectedly, she became pregnant at the age of 31 and she returned home to Halifax, Nova Scotia, with her little daughter in tow. She was broke and determined to build a better future, and that's when she reinvented herself. She transformed her life from a struggling single mom into a successful home renovator, designer, influencer, and TV show host. We dive into all the things with Rebekah today. Stay tuned to the end. We talk about specifically how she's delegated tasks to help her manage this multifaceted business, what systems that she swears by inside her business. And she shares her story of really struggling, trying to find her place, doing everything alone as a single mom, and how she produced and hosted her very own TV show. It is really inspirational. I think you'll enjoy my conversation with Rebekah. Enjoy. All right. I'm Rebekah Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Welcome to the podcast, Rebekah. I'm excited to have you here today.
Great to see you too, Rebekah.
And
It's too similar, isn't it? The Rebekah Hay and the Rebekah Higgs. It's a lot of similar
two
RHs.
Rebeccas.
House.
Yeah, seriously, two RH too, not just two Rebeccas. Your last name starts with H as well.
Yeah, two one-syllable last name H's.
Amazing. And you were in Toronto and now you're in Halifax.
Yes, I was.
And your story is amazing. And I can't wait to dive into all the things and to see what you've done over this period of time with your career and your business and your life. Before we dive into all the questions I have for you, why don't you introduce yourself just briefly to my audience?
Okay, thanks so much for that. So I'm Rebekah Higgs. I am the owner of Matriarch Productions and Design Co. I produced a TV show for 5 seasons called DIY Mom. DIY Mom is my personal brand, and that's what most people know me as. But I also do designs and renovations and construction, contracting for clients, as well as all of my own projects. Over the years, I was the contractor and the designer for. So I really built my toolkit and all of my skills just by doing it, by learning through all of my mistakes over the years and successes, to basically be where I am today. So I work in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I am Canadian. I've traveled all over this country as a musician before I was a designer. So yeah, it's been 10 years of DIY mom, and I'm excited to share that story with you guys.
Yeah, I love hearing these stories of transformation. You know, part of why I started this podcast is because I do believe women are extremely resilient. And so resilient by design is no accident. And I think you're a perfect guest to exemplify or be an exemplary guest.
An exemplary
Um,
example.
Yeah, something like that. No, but really, I mean, I think your story, it really resonated with me, the single parent. And I want you to tell your story to our audience. As someone who grew up with a single mom, I can
Mm.
really relate to a lot of what you talk about in your story. And I think there's something to be said for when you're on your own, how you really just get shit done, right? And
Yeah.
it's like fires under your butt. There's no one else to rely on but me. Like, let's make this work. Let's make this happen. And I do believe we share a bit of that in common. And
Hmm.
also, when you reached out to me, I love that you talked about how, creating systems has been your lifeline and how it has really helped you. So I want to ensure that we talk about that today, is
Hmm.
how that has affected running your business. So often we hear these stories of these entrepreneurs who build this incredible brand and they're TV hosts and you're producing a TV show and it's amazing, but we don't talk a lot about the little nitty gritty behind the scenes that making that all possible. So I
Yeah.
want to make sure we get there as well. So why don't we
Mm.
start in the beginning? Because you were a musician
Yeah.
and now you're doing all the other things. So how did you go from being a musician to running this empire?
Well, I guess to start off, I was raised by two parents that are very creative and are entrepreneurs. And as a child, I got used to the concept of moving frequently because my parents were always buying fixer-uppers and fixing them up and selling them and flipping before flipping really was a thing. So I guess that was a little bit in my DNA and my blood. Um, we were encouraged to take big risks and to think outside the box. I remember my dad dropping me off at school every morning and saying, make it happen. And so it's really interesting that you led with make it happen in your intro there because make it happen was our family mantra. And I think it's the mantra that has carried me through to this time in my life as well. So as a young teenager, I was always working for my dad on various projects that he had, painting, pressure washing, whatever small task, menial labor he wanted me to do. So I got used to hard work and rolling up my sleeves and not being afraid to get dirty. I also had a very creative mother that painted and made things beautiful and sewed and made our dresses and made our curtains and toll painted our pretty much our entire house. So a lot of creativity within the home and this idea that you can fix things up on a budget or DIY things, and that was very much part of the lifeline and the blood flowing in our family. So as I got into university, I wanted to be an actress. I did a theater school degree, and I was very active at school in my student council and in other things. So I was always throwing parties and doing the decor and the decorations. I remember having my dorm room and taking sheets and turning them into curtains, and decorating on a budget was always something that I did even at that age. So after university, I changed directions a bit. I went into music. I had learned to play the guitar and write my own songs during university, and I started sharing those songs. And as I got better at that and recorded my first album, I got signed to a record label. I had an booking agent. I was touring all over the country and touring all over the world in my bands. And that phase of my life lasted for about 7 or 8 years. I had moved to Toronto from Halifax, and um, I I kind of, it was a bit of a dark period in my life, sort of feeling a bit lost. And I ended up getting pregnant and having a daughter in Toronto. And that time was really challenging. Pregnancy was very difficult for me. I was very lonely. I was the first of all my friends to have a baby. Then I was in a situation that felt dangerous and not safe for the baby. And so I was able to, by sort of a miraculous amount of things that happened in my life, I was able to move back to Halifax with my daughter and really start over. So at that point, I was like, okay, I need to start over here. I need to think of a new career path. What am I going to do with my life? I have this baby now that I'm responsible for. Um, so that was when I got involved in the film industry in Nova Scotia. And I started working at Ag Films, and I quickly worked my way up the line at Ag to become a associate producer. And just like following my curiosity and asking lots of questions on set, I was just so curious, what does everybody do? What are the roles here? Talking to different people in marketing and the script writers, I just became very interested in what's the next trend in marketing going to be. And that was when I learned about branded content marketing. And that led me down the road of thinking, okay, what's my brand going to be if I was going to create my own brand? This was all before influencer marketing was a thing. And that's when all of my life experience kind of came together to form DIY Mom. So, as a musician, DIY was very much something that we used. Like that was a term that we were all familiar with. And I love the symmetry of DIY and MOM. put that together, created a little brand, and started DIY Mom. And that's kind
I
of where it
love
all
it.
started launching.
So that's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Let's just take it back for a second.
It's a long story.
But it's really interesting. And I always say these stories that we often have are long and convoluted in the sense of they're not always linear, right?
Hmm.
And I think growing up, we're taught, most of us, and maybe it's different nowadays, and I'm trying to do a better job with my kids, but we're taught, okay, you go to school, then you study the thing you want to do, then you do the thing, and you grow and you get promoted or you stay in that role or that industry, and that's your path. You're going to go to school, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to go to school, you're going to be a teacher. You're going to go to school, you're going to be a business person. Like
Hmm.
it's never like that. I mean, okay, some people are like that, but most of the creatives that we have on this podcast that are in my life do not follow a straight and narrow path. And so I love hearing everyone's story. And someone listening today could have a similar story to you, or their story could be completely different, but they can see the connections. It's like your
Hmm.
experience performing, creating music, then growing up around the design and DIY aspect, it's like they've all come together to create this perfect marriage of where you're at today. And I think
Yeah.
that's just such a great reminder for those of us, especially for the listeners who maybe want to take the leap into the interior design world. Maybe they're in marketing, maybe they're in corporate and they're
Hmm.
afraid. These your
Hmm.
story is such a great example. Like try something new, learn about it, and then you can pull the what you've learned from all these different areas together. How young were you when you had your daughter?
I was 31, so I wasn't too young. I was old enough to know better.
Uh,
But I think I had a late maturing process, because I was living a really wild life, a very self-centered life. And so having a baby really changed everything because all of a sudden I wasn't the most important person in the room. And I had this little baby that was relying on me. So, that was like another aspect of why the DIY mom part was so important to me because I was doing it myself. And so, from every aspect of it, from the fact that I am doing these renovations on a single mom budget, that they're DIY projects, that I'm producing my own TV show, that I'm making my own content, like I'm learning how to edit, I'm learning how to videotape myself, I'm learning how to put it all out there on the internet. So everything in my whole process was really DIY, and so I thought that really, you know, in, like just was exactly the correct wording for what I was doing in my
mhm.
life. So it is interesting. And I would say to the folks out there that are listening that everything that is happened in your life up to this point is not wasted education. They're all very valuable tools that you are learning and building. And all of these tools that I learned and developed over the years, I've kept in my toolbox and I've been able to pull out when I needed them for survival or for skills or to communicate a vision or to work with collaboratively with a team or the folks that are on my construction crews. And or even in those brand partnerships that I do. So yeah, it's all been a very valuable education, and these things just take time. It's not something that's easily taught in school. Even when I look at architecture students or design students and they come and they intern for me, they don't have a lot of practical knowledge. And that's not the point of school. School is to get you to think for yourself, to be a creative thinker and to do ideas and be creative. And the practical skills really come from life experience. Um, so yeah, all those years that I had before my design career started, they were not wasted. They were very useful in what I'm doing today.
I love that. I love how you say they're not wasted. It is just a stepping stone. So I'm so curious. You start working in TV land
Hmm.
and how did you then start doing the design? Were you doing DIY just for yourself and you thought, okay, I'm going to start documenting what I'm doing? Or did you jump right into helping other people, having clients? What was that transition like from working in television as a producer to then
Hmm.
being in front of the camera and serving design projects and clients?
So, one of my skills that I had that was unique to me when I was working in the film industry is that I had this creative ability. So, they started, I did a little bit of wardrobe for some of the smaller commercial shoots that we were doing. Then they kind of found out, oh, you can do hair and makeup too. And so I was doing my hair, I was doing their hair and makeup and their wardrobe. And then I was working on the set design team. So like hanging the curtains, fixing up the room, buying the furniture, decorating the spaces. And so that was also a job that I could do very well. And I could balance these four things for smaller productions. So I kind of ended up moving from a producer role more into the behind the scenes creative departments in the smaller commercial shoots. So that like experience, as well as the fact that I had had a little bit of experience in theater school and in my late 20s working on film productions for friends of mine that were filmmakers just doing their set decorating. I had a little knack for that. And then in terms of when I shifted into DIY mom, really the projects were based on my own needs. So just doing things around my own house and filming that and sharing that. And so it wasn't until a lot later that I started to take on other people's work and clients because I really wanted to showcase my creativity and what I could do through my own projects at my home. And working with a client, as you know, is a little bit limiting because you are beholden to them and what they want and their taste and their style. So at the start of my whole process of DIY mom was really about making a name for myself in terms of my particular design style. And then as I did get clients, they would either say, "Oh, I really like your design style. I want that." Or they would say, "Can you do less whimsical designs?" And I would say, "Yes, I can do that too." So
I don't want to, but I guess so.
if I must, I will.
So, what do you prefer? Do you prefer doing projects for clients or would you prefer just to do it for yourself?
I really enjoy doing the projects for myself because I get to try to do something that has never been seen or done before versus but I do love the challenge of working with a client, and of course I like spending other people's money. That's more fun than
Right.
spending my own money. So I remember when I finished my last big renovation project, my dad said to me, "Rebekah, you got to start spending other people's money. Like,
Yeah.
put yourself out there to do other people's work because the well is going to dry up for all of my personal design projects." But I have been able to bring in more opportunities to do my own designs through the brand deals that I do, which they often want those designs to be incorporated into my own home. So that is a way that I am still able to do my own personal work, and as well, I'm just starting a new brand new home build for this year, which will be for my personal home as well.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Very
What about
exciting.
you? Do you like all the work that you do with your clients or?
I think most designers prefer to do design for themselves because,
Hmm.
like you said, you get to do the ideas that you see and you want to do, and there's no pushback. Clients have their own ideas. It's their home. They're living there, right? And so as much as we want to encourage them to think outside the box and we want to push them, they're not always ready and wanting to push.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, from a financial standpoint, because of course my mind is always going to the business side.
Hmm.
How were you able to support yourself when you launched your DIY mom brand? Were you and fund your own projects? I know they're DIY, but it still
Yeah.
takes some money, right?
Hmm.
So, were you working full time while you were building this brand before you were able to bring in revenue from, let's say, partnerships? Or
Yeah.
was it funded through client work? I'm always just so curious, like where people are generating their revenue.
Yeah, so part of it was one of the first things I did was the rental house that I was living in was owned by my dad, and so my dad was like, "You can do the kitchen and the bathroom and I'll give you some money to do that." And I just filmed it and shared it on my own time while I was working. Um, then when I decided to buy my first home, and work on that, that was a combination of I got a great deal on a house. I got it for $100,000 under asking. I was able to get a renovation mortgage and money into uh put that money into the renovations. And I didn't have to start paying that mortgage until I moved into the house. So there was a little
Awesome.
bit of a break there. And then I met a guy that was just a sort of a single unit of a photographer and editor, and he was very affordable. And we started making these little YouTube mini series called the Welcome Home Project that was before DIY Mom season one started. So that was like in the fall. And then I got asked to be, because I had posted some content and I shown that I was, good on camera and that I could speak eloquently and that I was doing these interesting designs. I got asked by a production company locally if I would be a host to a carpenter for a blind carpenter TV show called Eyes for the Job. And so I made a good little nest egg of money from, I think I got made like 25,000 cash for, or not cash, but like I had a chunk of money there from the time that I spent doing that show. And then when Belle came on board pretty quickly after that to ask me to do season one of DIY Mom, I was able to take all of that money that Belle gave me and put it 100% into making the production high quality. It wasn't very much. I think it was like $75,000 or something like that for the whole season, which is not a lot of money to make a TV show. But
No.
because I had a crew that was fairly affordable and I had the money for the renovation, I was able to kind of put all of that money back into the production and then use the money that I had to renovate the house. And then I really didn't profit or make money off of DIY Mom until I sold the house. And that's when I saw the return on my investment. But in the meantime, I had other small sources of income. So I would go to on video shoots and I would do hair, makeup, wardrobe, set design. And I'd make a pretty good chunk of money on a day rate doing that. I also had an apartment building that I built that I bought back in my 20s with my pizza girl money. I was a pizza girl in my 20s, saved up $5,000, bought an apartment, small apartment building downtown. I had a little bit of income from that coming in too. So I always made sure I had a little bit of passive income to support me. But I think I was also very comfortable with going from my bank account constantly fluctuating, like
Hmm.
having one day having $100,000 in my bank account, the next day having nothing in my bank account. And I don't think that's for everybody. There's a lot of people that like really get anxious seeing all that money flowing out of their bank account when they're making big investments like this. Um, and I think that there's also, a certain personality type that is able to not have a reliable income, like be on that in
Yeah.
entrepreneur income versus someone that really needs that paycheck every 2 weeks. And so I think that I just got used to sometimes being at zero, sometimes being below zero, sometimes needing to like draw on my line of credit or something like that, and then get myself back
Right.
out of the hole. So it was always just like, yeah, it wasn't necessarily comfortable the whole time, that's for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. The whole time I'm nodding my head thinking, yeah, I can relate. Like this is how I've operated. I've always operated in this kind of up and down and influx and I'm investing and, people will often say to me, designers will say, well, like how could you afford to hire? How did you know when you were ready to hire? I'm like, I just did it. And
Hmm.
sometimes, shoot, I was in the red because I went a little bit too crazy and I brought in all these people and then the revenue didn't cover it. But then I learned for the next time. And I do believe you're right. Not everyone is wired that way. Um, like a true entrepreneur who's multi-passionate, I think has to have some tolerance for the financial risk that's associated with it.
Hmm.
Not to say you need to be tolerant of risk to run a design firm. It's not the same thing. But I think for someone, especially like yourself, you're clearly a very hard worker. You follow your instinct is what I'm hearing, and you follow your intuition when it's
Hmm.
saying, I want to try this. I'm going to learn this. Let's see where this goes. And I love this story because it shows us that you don't need to know where you're going to end up. You don't need to know the end result because look at all the different aspects of your life. They all have kind of led to different places that you could never have imagined. Right. And I love that you've shared that. So thank you for sharing and being so open and honest about the cash flow and how it can go up
Hmm.
and down, how it changes, because there's people listening who they have a gut pulling them into something, but they're afraid because maybe they're used to a corporate job where they get a paycheck every couple of weeks.
Hmm.
And so they're afraid that what if they do it and it's not going to work out? But I guess what I'm saying is, what if you try it and it does work out?
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
totally. Yeah.
Today, what does your business model look like today?
So I typically over the past couple of years, I had sort of three incomes. I had my uh my influencer marketing income, and then I had the production budget. And I also learned over time how to make that production budget grow through grants and through incentives. So, the first season I only had $75,000, but the future seasons I learned about Cavco and SBI and all these other ways to increase the amount of money that the government would give you to create jobs through the film industry. So I was able to stretch that a little bit more. And then second season of DIY Mom, I turned one of the apartments in the building that I bought with my pizza girl money in my 20s into an Airbnb. And so I started to generate some extra money through that Airbnb. As that did really well, I did another unit, turned that into an Airbnb. And so the Airbnb income then became like a third of my income. So I had sort of three incomes. Then when the laws changed and I had to close down the Airbnbs, I had to be a bit figure out, oh my gosh, I just lost a third of my income. What am I going to do now? So in the house that I'm currently living in, I have a basement in my house with two bedrooms. And because I'm allowed to have an Airbnb in my primary home, I still have that Airbnb income from my basement apartment. And that really covers my very big mortgage right now because my mortgage, just the timing of it all went up a lot for my third house that I'm in now. So I still have that income, and then and now I do have the client work. So I added that other pillar in with the client income as well. So designing and contracting, I get a bit of a chunk from each of those renovations because I'm doing the contractor work as well as the design work. And I think that's what makes me interesting as when you hire me to do your renovation is that I can do the designs, but I can also execute them because I have a Rolodex, I have a team, I have all the trades in place to get the work done. And it just tends to be pretty efficient because then I can communicate designs as they change and shift through the project.
Mhm.
Um, and I tend to also get those renovations done in a pretty quick timeline at a reasonable budget.
So, my question is, and I'm sure everyone's thinking this, who's listening, is how the heck do you do all of the things, woman? You've got a lot going on.
Yes. Well, the Airbnb seems to kind of take care of itself, which is great. I have a, a a local girl that does the flips for me. I stopped doing those flips. I remember when I was younger doing the flips myself, and through trial and tribulation of all the years of doing DIY and home renovations and constructions, I have learned that my body is was starting to give up on me a bit, and that the injuries I was procuring from all this hard labor that I was doing was not really uh um
Worth it.
feasible on the long term, right? Because I was spending all this
Yeah.
money on chiropractors and physio and osteopaths that I'd be like, okay, wait, I just mowed my own lawn and now I have to go to my osteopath. So why am I not paying a kid $30 to mow my lawn? Instead of the
Yes,
one hundred
smart.
dollars to go to my osteo. So just kind of like over the years, I slowly started to offload some of the labor and the more intense things. And I found the flipping of the beds was really hard on my arthritis and my neck. And so I've got other things, a lot of things going on physically in my body. So just kind of helping things run on their own as much as possible. And then with the production, when I was in full swing in the production, I had a great team that helped me with my contracts in terms of the brands that were coming in to work with us and sponsor the TV show and all the things that I had to deliver in exchange for that support. Um, and then I had some different sort of interns or recent graduates from the design school or from the film schools that would work on behind the scenes content or helping me execute those things. So that was when I was in my really busy stage. Now that I'm a little less busy, I have university students in the neighborhood that come and help me with my daughter, and they help me with my housework and things that is easier to offload on somebody. They can do my laundry just as well as I can do my laundry. So
Mhm.
just realizing that there's certain things that only I can do, and then there's other things that people can do just as well as me, maybe better, or if they're not quite as good at as I am at it, I can teach them and train them to do it. So trying to
Yes.
offload as much as possible has actually, and those small the money that I do spend on offloading those tasks, I've actually seen that income come back to me because I have been because my rate and my personal value I is higher. I'm able to bill myself out hourly at a higher rate. So therefore, it just makes sense for me to try to free up as much time as possible for me to do those things that only I can do.
Yeah. And also there's that mental lift, that mental load that isn't there of all the things that you need to think that you have to do. I haven't done the laundry yet, or I got to do this, or I got to pick up
Hmm.
that thing. Or also even the physical, like you mentioned, physically feeling like you can't do it all because it's a lot. You are doing a lot. You are achieving a lot, but you're not doing it alone. And it's interesting. I just interviewed Katie Decker Erickson for the podcast. I think it was episode 276, where we talked about hiring for your design
Mm.
business. And one of the areas that we went deep on was this idea of like, what do you love to do? What are your specialties? What
Yeah.
can only, as you just said, Rebekah, what can only you do? Let's focus
Hmm.
on those skills and then let's outsource the rest. Let's outsource, let's delegate. Because that's how you will be able to expand your capacity as a business
Hmm.
owner, as a mom, right? As
Hmm.
as as a human in this planet. Otherwise, you will limit yourself if you don't give up a little bit of control, which can be
Yeah.
hard for us, especially I think as women. Um, but you have to trust. You have to trust that others can do the job, even if they can't do it exactly as well as you can. Mind you, laundry, sometimes people can do that better than me. Like, look how
Yeah.
people fold laundry versus how I do it.
Yeah, I think that there's two aspects that are really important. It's the control, letting go of control, and also letting go of perfectionism. Because sometimes perfectionism is not serving us and is actually slowing us down, or we use it as an excuse for why it can't happen, why it can't get done. I remember
Yeah.
hearing someone tell me that perfection is the low-hanging fruit. It's the easiest thing to grab at when you don't want to do something or you want an excuse as to why it's not going to happen. And so oftentimes I will have to let go of that and say it's good enough, right? Because I
Hmm.
got to move on to something else. I got to get other things done. So, yeah, there's certain things in my
Progress
life that,
over
yeah,
perfection.
yeah,
Yes. And, I have heard them say, them, whoever they are, that perfection is actually procrastination in disguise,
yeah,
right? Which is
yeah,
exactly what you just said.
yeah,
And we cling to it. We really cling to it. It's funny. We had a coaching call yesterday inside designer's room, and one of the designers who's so talented, she's doing so well. She's really struggling to bring on one person to help her. And she is so overwhelmed because she can't, in her brain, she can't see how she's going to find the time to teach the person, to show them the way, to
yeah.
get them to help her. But it's a constant roadblock until you can
Mm,
decide, okay, I'm going to try having someone else help me. It may not work out. That person who's flipping your Airbnb, maybe you get a bunch of comments that, oh, the bed wasn't made properly or it was
mhm,
dirty. Well, then you deal with it. But if you don't at
yeah.
least try and bring somebody on, you're never going to even have a taste of what that freedom feels like.
A couple things I can speak to about that would be one, if your Airbnb is not to your standard or if you're getting complaints, you show the cleaner those complaints and you give them a list and you give them improvement. You just offer feedback, right? You just say, "Can I give you some feedback? Are you open to feedback?" I think for the most part, people want to improve and they want to do a really good job and they want to take pride in what they're doing. So giving them the opportunity to take pride in that work that they're doing. In terms
Yes.
of bringing in those new uh, the kids to work for you or a new hire, I know it can be very frustrating to have to retrain somebody. That is the thing that often brings me the most pain and the most frustration when I lose somebody because I often hire people that don't have experience because I'm getting it for a better rate or I'm giving them the experience that they need. I often do have to teach them. And then when they get really proficient and good at their job, they get picked off by somebody else, right? They end up
But
going
that's a
to work.
fear. A lot of designers fear that. Okay, so
Yeah.
what can you tell us about that?
So, well, the first thing I would say is that you have to let people make mistakes and show you what they're good at and what they're not good at. And when I would see somebody working for me and I would figure out, oh, wow, they're really good at making these planters look beautiful outside, or they really love spending time in the garden. And then I would give them more of that work. Or if I saw somebody that like really loved organizing and making my cupboards look beautiful and making things in the house look picture perfect. And they were really particularly good at like helping me stage for an Instagram photo or just organizing my house. I would give them more of that work. And then when I have had people that have worked for me under my design company doing AutoCAD, SketchUp, or other work that requires more direct contact with clients, then yeah, we have had some contracts, some non-disclosure agreements, and some non-competes in certain ways that they can't go poach my clients or
Yes,
with
absolutely.
direct. So you do have to protect yourself. And especially when I am exposing all of my, banking information, how much I'm getting paid for things, what a content or what content is paying me to create. Like there is a lot of things that I have maybe overshared in the past that I would be a little bit more careful about. I have had girls that have worked for me and they really wanted to work for me because they wanted to see how I do my social media stuff and how I get that content. And then they go off and they do that for themselves and they do it really well. And I can't hold it against them. I think it's part of the thing when you are a trailblazer or when you're an inspiration to other people is that you are going to take them on this journey and they are going to make progress and do things maybe
Yeah.
that you didn't think about or do them better than you. And you kind of have to just let it go and say, look, I'm in my own lane. If it
Yeah.
wasn't meant for me, it wasn't meant for me. The things that are still meant for me are coming to me. And I can always pivot and adapt and do other things because I have more financial freedom now and I have other opportunities coming to me.
I
So
love that.
just like not being too competitive, which is really hard because
It can be very hard.
the
But you know what?
competition is also what sort of fuels us to be so successful as
Well, there's
entrepreneurs.
that. But also, as Mel Robbins would say, let them,
Yeah, there's plenty of
right?
space for us all.
Let them and let me. Let me stay in my lane. Let me focus on what I want to do, what lights me up, what I am good at, which clearly you are good at many things. You're multi-talented, Rebekah.
Thank
So
you.
as we wrap up our conversation together, I feel like I have a million more questions that we barely scratched the surface. Isn't that funny how that happens? But what would you leave designers with? Like, what would be your last nugget of wisdom for the designers listening today?
Just set yourself apart. Find what you're really good at, what you're passionate about, and what your own personal flair is. Do things excellently. And like I said to my daughter, even like an 11-year-old girl, I was like, she's like, Mom, I don't want to play the snare and band. It's too simple. It's too easy. I know how to do it. Why do I have to go? I want the drum kit. And I'm like, you need to play that snare as best as possible. You need to be excellent at playing that snare. You need to impress the conductor so much that she gives you more to be responsible in. So just like do the things that you are doing, even the small projects, excellent. Finish them, execute well, and then you'll be given bigger projects, better projects, more projects. But every client that you work with has to leave with a really good taste in their mouth that you are a great person to work with. So they recommend you to the next person. It's really easy to leave loose ends at the end of a design project to kind of just want to get out of there and be done with it and wash your hands of it. And so I would just say, do things excellent, finish things as well as you can, and try to keep your relationships healthy so that you will be given much
Yeah.
more.
Well, and approach it with integrity, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes we need to be reminded of that because these projects can drag on, as we all
Hmm.
know, right? And by the end, our clients might be getting on our nerves. We don't want to deal with the issues or the contractor, but you're right. It's how we finish is what they're going to remember. That is the taste in their mouth. And I mean, we didn't really have a chance to dive into all the systems and all that conversation that I was so eager to
Mm-hmm.
talk about. And I feel like we did touch on that a little bit, especially when it comes to hiring. What is one system or process that you have implemented in your business that has been a game changer?
When you mention systems, can you just give me a little bit more?
So, okay, great. So it could be something like now you have a very multifaceted business model.
Yeah.
So we were talking about Airbnbs. It could be something as simple as I have a checklist that my cleaner or my flipper follows every single
Hmm.
time. And if something is missed, we like circle back and we find
Yeah.
out what happened. That's an example of a system or a process
Hmm.
that she follows. it could be that, or is there something else that you found has really helped you gain more time and avoid things slipping through the cracks, whether it's in your content creation, your production company, your client work? What is one system that you could leave designers with the thought of that has really
Yeah.
helped you? Because there's no
Just,
way a woman
yeah.
like you is, or anyone is running this incredible business without some semblance of systems, because you'd be going crazy, right?
Yeah, and I do think I do. It's funny because when you look at yourself and you have a little bit of a reflection about what the things you are good at and what the things you are not so good at, I always kind of thought I wasn't that organized and I wasn't really good at being organized. But then when I hear feedback from other people and they say, Rebekah, you're so organized, I think, oh, okay, I'm not doing such a bad job. I thought that I was much worse at this than I really am. So I do think going into a project, having as much planned out prior to starting the project is going to save you a lot of headaches in the end. And I've definitely learned over the years where mistakes tend to happen and trying to only make those mistakes once and not do it again the second time. So just like the accumulation of experience and realizing where things can go wrong and having that a plan and in place prior to starting. So the more you plan before you start your project, the better it's going to go in the end. And I'm talking about have that wallpaper early, have the stone that you want to use, have the textures that you're going to incorporate and the colors so that when you go to pick your paint, it's really easy because you already know what your wallpaper is. You already know what your stone color is. You already know that you're using this type of brick or this type of tile. So just like trying as much as possible to organize all those things before you start your project. And then working with people that I knew worked well with me, and I'm talking about other trades, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, people that respected working with a woman and listened to me, and just having those people in my Rolodex and keeping those relationships healthy, paying people immediately. That goes a long way. When people see that you pay them as soon as they send an invoice, they're more likely to return. And so I think just having that return rate of good people that I work with, clients that recommend me, and and being organized. Those are some of the systems that have really helped me to get where I am today. Um, and then just knowing, when you see a red flag, when you see a person that maybe is going to add some drama or toxicness to your world, just trying to avoid those people as much as possible. And then when I do get triggering emails, because everybody does get those emails or those text messages that are short, or you feel like they somehow trigger you, right? In a way that's
Accusatory. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And all of a sudden I'm reacting in a way that I don't want to react. I've definitely made mistakes in the past. Like I've lost my temper and things that I'm embarrassed and ashamed of. So I never want to do that again. So instead of reacting quickly to an email or a message, just taking a second. And I also find that ChatGTP has been my friend because I will put the
Hmm.
email in and ask them, how would you respond? And they'll give me a response that I can see, I can be a bit more balanced in the way that my perspective and be like, okay, this is how a professional person would respond. And then I can tweak it to sound a bit more like me and also give it some feedback to say, well, I don't really want to give in on this point. So push
Yep.
back here a bit stronger, or maybe it needs to be more legally binding in the wording or something that really communicates my side of perspective. And so using ChatGPT like a sounding board, and
Yeah.
then having your clients sign an agreement before you start to, and just giving
Yeah.
them the terms and the rules to follow. Like, if you're making decisions in the last minute, if you're changing things, like that is going to slow down the renovation, that is going to change the cost. So as long as they understand clearly before you start working together that these are the parameters and these are the restrictions and the results of breaking those restrictions, then
Yes.
I think that you can have a good, healthy relationship with those clients.
Yeah, setting those expectations early and often repeating them, right? That's so
Mm,
key. And I love your very first point where you say, you know, plan, pick everything, choose everything up front. I'll just chime in and say that was a big game changer for me. I worked for a
mm,
designer for years that we did not do that. We were making decisions as needed. And it was
mhm.
freaking chaos. It was,
Yeah.
we're not going to pick the cabinet hardware until the kitchen's installed. Well, why the heck not? That's one more thing we could check off our list. And as the assistant, it used to cause me so much anxiety.
Mm,
And then when I switched to my model, which is I make every decision before I've even presented it to the client, it is such a smoother process. So investing that time up front, whether it's in
mhm.
creating the contract, making sure you have all those terms laid out as you say, or making those design selections like the wallpaper, the stone ahead of time, it actually saves you so much time and pain and all that goes with that after as you're moving through a project. Those are really great
And it's
tips.
never
Thank
going to
you
be
so much.
perfect. And there's always these times where, you do have to make last minute choices. But I do find like just being one step ahead, like it's a chessboard, right? You always need to be one move ahead. So if you know that in 2 weeks, the cabinets are going in and that they will want the hardware on site when they finish the cabinet so that they can install the hardware, then you better go and pick up that hardware and get it there. And I love it when I hear feedback from a tradesperson that is working for me that they say, wow, you're a lot more organized than other people that I've worked with, or you seem to know what you're doing, or you like, I love working for you because you always have all the things I need on site. It really slows down the guys that are there, or the girls that are there
Mhm.
working if you don't have the things that they need on site. And people love to say they can't do the job that you've paid them to do because the thing's not there. So
Yeah.
don't give them that excuse.
Don't
Be
give
one
them the
step ahead.
ammunition. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. We're talking about this all the time inside designers room with designers. Oh my gosh, Rebecca, this has been so amazing. Where can everyone find and follow you? And then also, where can we watch? You're building your next home. Like it sounds like it's
Yeah.
going to be an incredible project you're building from scratch. Where can we follow this journey?
So if you want to see how I've gotten to where I am today, the best thing to do is to watch my TV series DIY Mom. You can do that on my YouTube channel by going through my website, diymom.ca, or the entire series is on trybinge.tv, and they are putting it on all the fast channels. So maybe when you turn on your TV, it might come on. And then if you want to follow what I'm doing on a daily basis and my next project, find me on Instagram at diymom.ca. And if you're hearing about me for the first time and you want to connect on a deeper level, please send me a message or DM me. Let me know that you're following me and that you found me through Resilient by Design. And I would love to connect with you further.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited to follow your journey and we will have you back. I'm excited to see where this next decade takes you. It sounds like you're destined for even bigger things.
Oh, thank you so much, Rebecca. I really enjoyed this conversation that we had today. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Thank you. Wow. Guys, I loved that conversation. Rebecca and I actually stayed on for an extra 20 minutes chatting about the land of TV and producing your own TV show and running a business and all the things. I really enjoyed talking with her. There's so much more we could have talked about. I would love to hear from you. What part of Rebecca's story really resonated? I hope if you take anything away, it's that the path to success is rarely direct. Sometimes you kiss a few frogs. Sometimes you go left, then you go right, then you go up, then you go down, you go horizontal. It's like those, what are they? Those crossword puzzles? No, not crossword, word searches. My kids always have these word searches, and then they'll like throw in one of the words will be like diagonal and backwards. Like, what do we never see those ones coming? So just remember that. Try it. Follow your intuition. Where's it going to take you? Maybe you'll end up in a totally different place. Take that leap of faith. Whatever you've done up until now in your life, you can use that. These are skills that are directly applicable. I hear so many designers say, well, I mean, I feel like I'm throwing my career away if I start my design firm because, I have these 20 years in corporate in HR. Like, I can't even see how that's going to help me. It is going to help you. You will be surprised how much business is so much more than just designing pretty things. And any life experience you bring to the table will catapult your success forward even faster. But I digress. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Rebecca. Go give her a follow. I think what she's doing amazing. I cannot wait to watch her new build of her new home in Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's such a beautiful part of the country. And please let me know on Instagram how you enjoyed this episode. It would mean so much if you could leave us a review and subscribe or follow this podcast. It surprises me often how many people still are not subscribed to the podcast. And the more people who subscribe, the more people who will know we exist, who can come and join in this world, who can learn from these episodes, from these beautiful guests. So please, if you could just do me this one favor and hit subscribe or follow this podcast wherever you are listening, that would mean the world to me. All right. Thank you. And I'll see you soon.